Number 1. On February 8th, 1981, a man was found beheaded and wrapped in a sleeping bag near Alvord Lake in San Francisco. The deputy coroner commented that the cut was very clean and speculated that either a machete or a very sharp axe was used. The headless man was identified as Leroy Carter Jr. Police were unable to find Leroy's head. However, they did find a headless chicken at the crime scene. Some of the chicken, a chicken wing and 2 kernels of corn to be exact, was found stuffed into the victim's bloody neck stump. All of the evidence pointed towards religious fanatics and cultists, causing the police department to turn to Inspector Sandy Gallant, who had just recently gained reputation as the department's resident expert on religious extremists. Sandy reached out to Charles Wheatley, coroner of Dade County, Florida, who happened to be an expert in Santeria, a religion originating in Western Africa that's a little heavy on poultry. Charles proposed that black magic was involved and that the head of the victim would be used in a ritual by the practitioners and returned to the crime scene in 42 days. When Sandy shared this information with her department, she was of course laughed off. As the day drew closer, even Gallant began doubting herself and her findings. Because of this, no one, not even Inspector Gallant, was at the scene of the crime on the 42nd day when the head was returned and placed in a nearby bush. To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. Number 2. Charles Simon, a God-fearing man with a reputation of hard work and professional success, married Anne Simon and adopted her 2 sons from a previous marriage. After long periods of loneliness due to failed relationships, Charles finally felt stable and happy in his marriage to Anne. The couple even started a mom-and-pop truck farm together. But their happiness faded when Anne began to develop an interest in witchcraft and demons. Charles first discovered this when he noticed a glow coming from his tool shed in the dead of night. To his horror, he discovered his wife in her underwear, chanting and kneeling before an image of a demon. Charles intervened in his wife's chanting and pulled her from her trance. As a result of what he had seen, Charles began to question the woman he had married. To further his suspicions, he had also found satanic literature among his wife's possessions. Charles eventually decided to divorce Anne. Following the divorce, Anne began seeing a retired cop named Gary Goff, who she began living with. In a depressed and lonely state of mind, Charles began seeking contact with Anne again. Gary was enraged by Charles' attempts to contact Anne, calling him multiple times with threats of violence. Charles quickly retreated, coming to his senses and once again forgetting about Anne. However, on October 19th, 1986, he received a call from her stating that she was feeling suicidal and that her sons may be in danger. Charles received the call while with a friend whom he confided in, stating that he thought he was being set up. Against his better judgment, he went to check on Anne. 20 minutes after arriving to Gary and Anne's home, Charles was dead. Anne quickly phoned the police to report the shooting and had claimed that an angry, drunk Charles arrived unannounced, demanding to be let in. According to Anne and Gary, when he was denied access, he then forced his way into the home and began physically beating Anne, driving Gary to hit Charles with an iron and shoot him multiple times in self-defense. The police questioned the couple's story upon interrogating Charles's friend, who claimed that Charles had not been drinking that night and has never been known to be a heavy drinker. One of Anne's friends also came forward to the police, claiming Anne had motive for wanting Charles dead. Gary and Anne quickly vanished amidst the investigation and have not been seen since. Number 3. The following are unresolved cases involved in the Circle of Death, which refers to the several suspicious deaths surrounding Terry Hoffman and a movement known as the conscious development of the body, mind, and soul. Although the main suspect in these murders, Terry Hoffman, has never been charged. Charles Southern Jr., a conscious development follower and college professor from Chicago, went missing in 1987. When his relatives entered his home, they found his coat folded inside out, sitting on a ceremonial stool with his hat on top, the Nigerian tribal symbol of death. Two barely legible notes were also found as his last will and testament, which named Terry Hoffman as the sole beneficiary of his estate. Don Hoffman was Terry's fourth husband. In the fall of 1988, Don fell ill and committed suicide in his hotel room in Texas. His family later discovered a tape taken moments before his death, in which he reveals that he has terminal cancer and he was saying goodbye to his family. However, when an autopsy was performed, there were no traces of cancer in his body. Before his death, he too named Terry Hoffman sole beneficiary of his estate. Mary Levinson became a conscious development follower in 1987. Shortly after, her body was found in a Chicago motel room with a puncture wound on her left wrist. An autopsy revealed that the cause of death was an overdose on sleeping pills. Just 2 weeks earlier, she changed her life insurance policy, replacing her brother as sole beneficiary with Dr. Larry Keyes, a former boyfriend she met at a retreat with Terry. After her death, her family discovered there was money missing from Mary's divorce settlement, along with $3,200 worth of jewelry. Mary left behind a video claiming to have used the divorce settlement money to pay off small debts and donate to animal welfare societies. In the video, she claimed to be fully rational, saying she had thought a lot about her decision, even saying she was looking forward to it. Her family suspects that Terry was with Mary when she died and led her to committing suicide using hypnosis and manipulation, then stole her valuables. In the 1980s, David Allen and Glenda Goodman became followers of the conscious development. By 1989, the couple had reportedly began acting strange, which most suspect had to do with Terry Hoffman's influence on them. In January of 1990, the couple was found shot dead in their Lake Highlands home with guns by their side. In the days before their deaths, investigators found nearly $100,000 in checks from the couple written to Terry. Their families believe Terry convinced them to commit suicide in order to get money from them, and that she is the reason why they are dead. Sandy Cleaver became a follower of the conscious development in the late 1970s. In February of 1979, Sandy's 14-year-old daughter mysteriously drowned while on vacation in Hawaii. Trying to cope with her daughter's death, Sandy became close to her housekeeper, Lucy Watson. After spending the day at Terry's sister's house, Sandy drove off a 450-foot cliff with Lucy in the passenger seat. The two were killed upon impact. Terry had been listed in both of their wills prior to death. While the investigators were able to determine that Sandy drove off the cliff at approximately 12 p.m., they were never able to find out why. And the mystery remains unsolved to this day. Hello friends, Mr. Paleface here. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Have you had a really creepy experience lately? Have you had a nightmare recently you'd like to share? Send in your scary stories to contactmrpaleface@gmail.com for a chance to be featured in one of my videos.